For WION, World is One.
Vielleicht nur als Impulsant.
Hi everyone, welcome to WION Live broadcast with me, Susan Tehrani from New York City. First, let's take a look at this hour's headlines, and then we'll dive in right into our first story. Donald Trump is set to face the first ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president. The charges are tied to a $130,000 hush money payment made to buy a porn star's silence before the 2016 presidential election. Iran's foreign ministry says the country is not seeking to further escalate regional tensions following an unprecedented missile and drone attack against Israel. According to the Washington Post, the FBI has opened a federal criminal probe into the March 26th bridge collapse in Maryland to identify if the crew knew that the ship had serious problems with its system. A number of people were injured in a stabbing at a church in a suburb of Sydney, in a second reported mass stabbing in just 3 days in Sydney after 6 people were killed in a knife attack at a mall in the Bondi area. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that he plans to make India a developed nation by 2047 and urged foreign investors, including Tesla owner Elon Musk, to come manufacture and invest in the country. The Indian government says that the country is likely to receive above-average monsoon rainfall in 2024 and a potential boost for the country, which depends heavily on summer rains for its farm output. Afghanistan's first female Olympian, Fariba Rezai, wants her own country to be banned from the Paris Games due to the Taliban's treatment of women. Israel's European allies urge it to show restraint over Iran's weekend missile and drone attack. Now all eyes are on Washington. Will President Biden, that is, convince Israel from striking back at Iran? Our next report gives you the details.
It was a chilling sight. Hundreds of missiles and drones flying in from Iran. Israel says, with the help of the United States and United Kingdom, it intercepted 99% of the 300 drones and missiles. The assault marks a significant escalation in the ongoing shadow war between Israel and Iran, and the first time that Iran has launched a direct military strike on Israel. Tehran's strike came as a response to the airstrikes on the Iranian consulate in Syria 2 weeks ago, for which it blamed Israel. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the Biden administration is now seeking to leverage its hold on Israel to prevent a full-blown retaliation that could further worsen the conflict.
Whether and how the Israelis will respond, that's going to be up to them. We understand that and respect that. But the president's been very clear. We don't seek a war with Iran. We're not looking for escalation here. We will continue to help Israel defend itself.
Russia and China joined world leaders urging restraint. UK and France are urging Israel to be smart as well as tough and avoid striking back at Iran.
The attack was an almost total failure, and they've revealed to the world that they are the malign influence in the region prepared to do this. So our hope is that there won't be a retaliatory response, and instead the world's focus should shift to Hamas.
Mais donc nous avons condamné,
we are going to try to convince Israel that we should not respond by escalating, but rather by isolating Iran, by convincing the countries in the region that Iran is a danger, and by increasing the sanctions.
Isoler l'Iran, réussir à convaincre les pays de la région que l'Iran est un danger, accroître les sanctions.
However, Israel's war cabinet is divided. Some are favoring a strong response against Iran, while others are more cautious about its timing and nature. It is a delicate situation. All eyes are on the Biden administration and its ability to persuade its longtime ally Israel to prevent the conflict from spiraling out of control and igniting a broader regional conflagration. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
We are now being joined by our guest, Mr. David M. Lippman from Boston. He is a senior analyst at the media monitoring organization, the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis, or the CAMERA. David, thank you so much for joining us on WION. Welcome back. What are your thoughts on the U.S. stance after Iran's attack on Israel, namely saying the leak that we heard about that President Biden allegedly told Prime Minister Netanyahu that the United States wouldn't back an Israeli retaliatory attack?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for having me back again. It's a pleasure to be here. In terms of the U.S. response, what is curious to me in reviewing the statements coming from the administration is that they seem to be under this understanding that there isn't already a wider regional conflagration, that Iran isn't already actively engaged in promoting warfare and using its proxies to engage in warfare throughout the region. And when the United States signals to its ally Israel to not respond to this line that has been crossed of a direct attack from Iranian territory onto Israeli territory, that isn't just sending a message to Israel, that's sending a message to Iran about how far it can go in pushing its destabilizing image of the Middle East even further.
And Iran and the United States have different narratives on whether intelligence was shared or that Iran gave a heads up prior to its attack on Israel. What are your thoughts on that, and which way should we be leaning on believing what side?
It's a good question. If you pay attention or if you read carefully the statements that are coming out from both sides, it suggests to me that the answer is somewhere in the middle. The statements coming from the US and from the United Kingdom are noticeably worded very carefully, in which they don't seem to be outright denying everything Iran is saying, only part of it. And where exactly the truth lies, we'll have to leave that perhaps to historians, but it seems to me that Iran is telling somewhat of the truth, that it did give some advanced warning. It might have left out critical details, and that might be where the US and the UK are pushing back and denying having full knowledge of what was going to happen.
Very interesting. Okay, well, we'll be following the Middle East region, of course, very closely. Mr. David M. Lippman, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you so much.
Joe Biden is gearing up to welcome Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani on his first ever visit to Washington later today. However, the visit is overshadowed by the threat of a Gaza war spillover looming in the background. This, as Baghdad happens to be a rare ally of both Washington and Tehran. The Biden administration has been pressing Baghdad and other partners in the region to urge Iran to show restraint. This comes following the killing of 7 Iranian military officers in an April 1st strike by Israel. However, Tehran responded with over 300 drones and missiles against Israel over the weekend. A potential escalation will be front of mind for Biden and al-Sudani, who are keen to prevent Israel's war from spreading into Syria and Lebanon. In the earlier months of the Gaza war, Iran-backed groups such as Kataib Hezbollah repeatedly targeted American troops in the region. These included attacks on U.S. bases in Jordan near the border of Iraq and Syria back in January. That attack killed 3 American soldiers and wounded more than 40 others. Under pressure from Baghdad, shortly after the attack, Kataib Hezbollah announced it was suspending all of its military operations against American troops. Suspension of hostilities from Kataib Hezbollah and other anti-U.S. groups was a condition placed by the United States for the Iraqi Prime Minister's visit. But what's likely to be on President Biden's agenda is yet to be seen. Well, for starters, this is what we do know. A top goal in Washington for al-Sudani is progress towards an agreement on U.S. troop withdrawal from his country before a potential change in U.S. administration after the November election. There are approximately 2,500 U.S. troops still deployed in Iraq. Biden and al-Sudani will also discuss, quote, ongoing Iraqi financial reforms to promote economic development and progress towards Iraq's energy independence and modernization. This is according to the White House. Not only this, al-Sudani said that he aims for a new phase of strategic partnership that supports the sovereignty and independence of Iraq without forging fruitful cooperation between Baghdad and Washington. After efforts to delay it, Donald Trump is facing trial related to a hush money payment case. Trump is making history by becoming the first former U.S. president to sit in a courtroom for a criminal trial just months ahead of the U.S. presidential elections. He is accused of falsifying his business records to disguise a hush money payment made to former adult film star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. If Trump is convicted, he could face up to 4 years in jail. The trial is beginning with jury selection. 12 jurors will be given a verdict of former president, with the entire trial expected to continue for 6 to 8 weeks.
Certainly, there's been a lot of media attention in New York, but I do think that they can, over time, and it may take some time to impanel a jury, but they will be able to find jurors who will be able to say that they will be able to make a decision impartially based solely on the evidence that's presented at the trial, and that they have no preconceived notions as to whether or not the defendant is guilty of the crimes.
The hush money trial is the first of the 4 criminal cases that will begin against the former president. The trial in Manhattan is expected to feature testimonies of several key characters in the case. They include Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, and Trump's personal lawyer, who went to prison in part over the scandal. Trump has made several unsuccessful attempts to delay the jury trial and move it from Manhattan, that is comprised prominently of Democrats.
When I accepted a job.
All right, time for a short commercial break. When we come back, we will give you details of a ruling that confirms a staffer raped his colleague inside the Australian Parliament.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.